In a segment between Brian Stelter and Oliver Darcy of CNN, they asked the very important question, is Tucker Carlson the new Alex Jones? Well, Oliver Darcy said yes, and Stelter basically said yes. Tucker Carlson is the new Alex Jones. You see, what they did in this video, it's actually really quite hilarious. I want to break it down for you, but let me just get to the crux of this segment. CNN is dying. They're trying to sell off the building that CNN is in Atlanta. They're trying to get rid of it. There have been layoffs, resizing. Their ratings are on fire. Nobody wants to watch this garbage. So what does Brian Stelter do? Well, it's very simple. And it's actually very sad. It's like watching a horse drowning. You can't really grab at straws because it just has hooves. So it's just sloshing and splashing about. And as it slowly drowns, you're like, that's really sad. I'm kind of sad. But it also turns out the horse was kind of a bad horse. Kept biting people and yelling at people and kicking people. And you're like, it's kind of hard to feel bad at this point. Okay, stupid analogy, whatever. The point is, CNN's ratings are in the gutter. Nobody wants to watch this stuff because they lie all the time. They lied for years. They built up an army of people who hated Donald Trump. And now that Donald Trump ain't the president anymore, they got nobody to watch their garbage channel. However, Tucker Carlson is a culture warrior. He actually is pretty spot on in a lot of his segments, and they don't like him for it. Does Tucker Carlson go out with raving and ranting psycho conspiracies about interdimensional aliens? No, he doesn't. Did he suggest, or did he state definitively that he was being spied on? He did. Perhaps he has evidence. Okay, well, let's see. There's a lot of people on the left now writing that he made it up because Fox won't even go near the story. Perhaps it is the personal assessment of Tucker Carlson, and maybe he's wrong. Sure, that's fine. Tucker's allowed to be wrong. So is CNN, actually. The problem is CNN's wrong, like, all the time. And it gets to a point where you're like, bro, are you deliberately wrong? Yes, and I'll show you why. In this tweet from Oliver Darcy, wow, Oliver, man, I knew you went off the rails a long time ago, but this is a whole new level of bat-ish crazy. We don't swear on this channel. This is just, I mean, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel so hard, desperate for some content or relevance, that he put together one of the stupidest videos I have ever seen. Imagine if, like, Brian Stelter comes out and he goes like, Adolf Hitler drinks water. Tucker Carlson drank water. Is Tucker Carlson Hitler? Somebody made that joke. They were like, Hitler wore a suit, and so did Oliver Darcy. Does that mean Oliver Darcy is the new Hitler? Apparently so, based on the logic of Oliver Darcy. Let me play for you this clip so you can understand just how stupid this idea is. But I also want to point out the absurdity and the desperation. Brian Stelter has actually said Tucker is the new Trump. That's right. According to Brian Stelter, man, these people are crackpots. Is Tucker Carlson the new Donald Trump? CNN's Brian Stelter thinks so. Is Tucker Carlson the new Alex Jones? CNN's Brian Stelter seems to think so. Some kind of amalgam of Donald Trump's boisterous leadership with Alex Jones's fervent rhetoric, and you get Donix Trones. That's what CNN's telling you. No. How about this? They're going to be like, is he Trump? Because they're desperate, so desperate. Please watch our garbage show. And then when people didn't do it, they said, wow, you don't care about Trump, but what about Alex Jones? Oh, that guy's crazy. People still don't care. It's incredible. Let me play this clip for you.
Emails.
It's not that I think the government spies on me. It's admitted that they do it.
It is a lie to say there are no risks. There are risks in everything, including in getting a vaccine.
Everybody's got family that got killed or got sick from a vaccine.
So FBI operatives were organizing the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, according to government documents.
It is overwhelming, the evidence that criminal elements of the federal government provocateured and staged January 6th.
Okay, let me just break down a little bit of that for you to explain why CNN is full of it. And then we'll make fun of CNN some more because their ratings are in the trash and they're desperately trying to argue that no, they're actually okay. The first thing Tucker says, he's being spied on. I don't know what really to say about that other than he's made the claim that a whistleblower came to him with information that could have only have come from his phone. Maybe a little hyperbolic. I'd like to see some evidence, but not really much I can say. Now, Alex Jones in the video says that he's being spied on and it's admitted. There's probably a lot of context there that's missing, but let's just talk about Edward Snowden. Both of these men are being spied on. I'm being spied on. You know why? Because you're being spied on too. Because the NSA does bulk collection of data. Next. All right, well, let's get more specific. The claim essentially is that they're both being spied on. When I was at Vice, we had a joke about we wanted to do a video where the top Vice people, like personalities, would file Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA requests, on their names, and the competition was to see who had the bigger FBI file. Yeah, you're being tracked. They're investigating you passively or directly. Now, whether or not that's true for Jones or Tucker, I don't know. But if someone came to me and said that I'm a high-profile media figure and anti-establishment who's very critical of the federal government, I'm being spied on, I'd be like, yeah, probably. I don't know. What, sure, I guess. There's not much to go on there. But let's go to the next one.
I just say there are no risks. There are risks in everything, including in getting a vaccine.
Okay, so in this clip, Tucker says, well, of course there are risks. There's risks in even getting a vaccine. Of course, vaccine injury exists. It's literally why we have the vaccine adverse event reporting system. What Tucker is saying is normal mainstream rhetoric. In fact, you are actually, I think the YouTube rules say you have to mention this. You can't claim it's like an end-all, be-all guaranteed cure. Literally, Google's rules say you can't go out and make that claim. Now, Alex comes out and then says, everybody knows someone who's been, let me get his quote.
Everybody's got family that got killed or got sick from a vaccine.
I think that's a bit of a stretch to say everybody. I know a lot of people who don't know that, who don't know anybody. And even if we were to look at the vaccine adverse event reporting system, which some say is a lower, it's between 1 and 10% of the actual adverse events, we're talking about 177 million vaccines. So Alex Jones is a bit more bombastic. The point is, I'm not here to argue about any of that stuff. You can talk to your doctor about it. You know, I always say that, and YouTube actually requires you to. But anyway, I digress. What Tucker was saying was nowhere near the level of what Alex Jones was saying. He was just like, sometimes there are risks. Yes, we know that. The doctors tell you this. How is that unhinged Alex Jones level conspiracy? Here's the next one.
So FBI operatives were organizing the attack on the Capitol.
Okay, FBI operatives. This is based off of information that there are individuals whose names will not be released in FBI documents. However, these individuals have not been indicted. That is to suggest they are confidential informants. There was recently a big expose on a very prominent right-wing figure that they may have actually been an informant for the federal government. And so Tucker, probably a bit bombastic, maybe a little bit of a stretch to say. But it seems like what's really happening is the feds were coaxing people and saying, yeah, you know, do it. Tucker is then taking the, in my opinion, hyperbolic approach to say they literally organize it. Well, what the FBI does is they find mentally unwell people and then coax them into doing something, often provide the resources, and then arrest them. So is it a stretch to say? Actually, maybe not. But maybe you need to be a little bit more nuanced in how you're providing the context, at least in my opinion. But not inherently wrong. Alex Jones then goes on to say that rogue elements of the government staged or whatever. Look, simply because there is some morsel of truth here does not mean that Tucker Carlson is Alex Jones. I find it absolutely hilarious that CNN is more akin to the, well, actually, that's not even fair to Alex Jones. I was going to say CNN's more like Alex Jones, taking a morsel of truth and stretching it. But that's not even fair to Alex Jones. Alex may be bombastic in a lot of ways, but he's gotten some stories right over the past several years. And even Joe Rogan was like, man, people owe that guy an apology. I'll tell you this, man, when I had Alex on the IRL podcast and he was like, you know, we're eating a bunch of cloned beef. And I was like, Alex, we are not eating cloned cows. What are you talking about, Alex? That's crazy. And then he was like, look it up. And I looked it up and I'm like, wait a minute. We are eating cloned beef. So I think the funny thing is, you know, Alex might find some of these weird stories people don't believe. And then sure enough, it turns out to be true. The same thing happened on Joe Rogan's show. Alex said a bunch of stuff and Joe's like, that's not true. And he's like, look it up. And then Joe looked it up and they were like, oh, actually, that is true. And you don't believe it because some of these stories sound insane. When Alex comes out and gives you these actual, like, listen. Alex comes out and says rogue elements of the government were planning or staging January 6th or whatever. I think that's a big stretch. But I got to admit, when he came out and said we're eating cloned beef, that sounded even crazier. I'm like, there's no mass production. How are they even to do the cloned beef? Get out of here. And he's like, Yeah, it's true. And I looked it up and it is true. Cloned meat. That's nasty, man. I didn't realize that. Well, Alex Jones says this. In a new story, Jones says Tucker Carlson echoes him because they see the same issues. Yeah, I see many of the same issues as well. But regardless of this, CNN took the most absurd semi-related clips and then there's what, 3 of them? Tucker Carlson is Alex Jones because we found 3 things that are tangentially similar. Like, what are you doing? Wow. You know, Oliver Darcy once interviewed me about social media censorship. And I said banning the alt-right was wrong because censorship doesn't work. It pushes these things into the dark corners where they fester and they grow. And that's still true to this day. I mean, that stuff hasn't gone away. It's a complicated story, and I don't want to put too much into it, but there are certainly elements of the alt-right that have only been strengthened by the censorship in some regards. Now, they certainly wanted more mainstream exposure, but they never had a particularly large, mainstream, powerful, prominent center. It was only because new right individuals didn't know what they were looking at. But anyway, I digress. Here we can see that the absolute psychosis of CNN, it knows no bounds. The censorship doesn't work. But as I was saying with Oliver Darcy, he interviewed me about this. And it was like a normal, like prominent YouTuber or a prominent, journalist says censorship is wrong. Because Oliver Darcy used to be a conservative. He used to do these really, really cheesy, like man on the street things where he tried to own libs. And it was sad. It was really pathetic. Oliver Darcy's lack of talent and skill, he couldn't figure out a way to be a conservative. Here's what I think. I think Darcy was conservative. I think he held these views. I think he understands what he's doing. I think he knows he's lying. I think he's just a sociopath. So what happens is, you look at the guy. The craziest thing is in this video, he didn't even blink. In this video,
choose your own reality culture.
Let me turn this down. People are pointing out that in this video with Brian Stelter, Oliver Darcy doesn't blink, and people are like, "Yo, dude's not blinking. That's creepy, man." Okay, well, I don't know if blinking has anything to do with his abilities, but let me just put it this way: the dude's a sociopath. Okay. Maybe he was never really conservative. Maybe he was like, ooh, I can make these videos. It's really easy. And when it didn't work, he's like, okay, that doesn't work. I guess conservatives aren't stupid enough to fall for that. Some are, for sure. So then what does he do? Well, he goes to CNN and starts producing lies, garbage content, manipulation, and it's sad. All right, well, Alex Jones is saying that Tucker and him see the same issues, but sure, a lot of people see the same issues. Just because Alex Jones talks about things doesn't mean everyone is Alex Jones for talking about the same things. That's dumb. Is Tucker Carlson the new Donald Trump? Here's your evidence. March 14th. It was only a few months ago. CNN was claiming Tucker was Donald Trump. Brilliant. You see, they're going to keep saying this. What they're really trying to say is Trump is gone. We have no boogeyman. Alex Jones is gone. We have no boogeyman. The only thing that is prominent on the right that the left knows about is Tucker Carlson, and we hate him. What can we do to get videos made about us, perhaps? I think what they're trying to do is siphon away some of the views from Fox News, at least temporarily, because the people who like Tucker will watch that video and then be like, you're wrong, CNN. And at least CNN will temporarily get some money before it all goes belly up and they all lose their jobs. Imagine being such a pathetic loser that you would decide to do this kind of extremist content where you're like, Tucker claimed that vaccines have risks and Alex Jones made a much more wild statement, but they're the same thing. You go to your doctor and they tell you there's risks, but they're going to tell you the risks are substantially lower than COVID. So what's the issue? I love it. Trying to compare him to Donald Trump. All right, well, let's play a game from Forbes. CNN drops 68% in Prime as Fox News Channel crushes competition in Q2 cable news ratings. That's from Forbes. Really, you don't say. Well, check this out from the Daily Beast. Fox News really wants you to think its ratings aren't down. I'm not so convinced that's true. MSNBC and CNN's ratings are seriously slumping, as Fox News and its right-wing media allies have relentlessly pointed out. But that, of course, is not the full picture. Yeah, everyone's ratings are down. My views are down. During the election year, it was nuts. It was one of the most important and prominent elections ever. But we got like a total of like 130 million views in October and November. That's crazy. Now we get like 50 to 60. So it's like down by a little bit more than half. That's substantial. 50 or so percent. I'm not surprised, though. Why do people during the election, people want to know what was going on and they were locked down. Now people aren't locked down. They're going out. They're going about their lives. And there's no election this year. So you want to talk about politics and culture? Man, I don't know. Not really. People should pay attention to this stuff, but they'll come back in. Midterms are next year. We'll see a bump. Then we'll see 2023's presidential campaigning, which we'll see a big bump in 2024. So this is the lull year. These things happen. Everybody knows they happen. It's true for CNN. It's true for Fox News. The issue is CNN's ratings are worse. They're dropping substantially more than Tucker's have. Now, to be fair, Tucker had like 5 million views per night. Massive historical ratings until he came out and said Sidney Powell was wrong over her claims about the election. And that resulted in like 2 million people leaving to other networks. Seriously, like a 2 million person drop nearly overnight. Take a look at the demographics for July 2nd. When we can, you know what? Let's do this. We'll look at the key demo, 25 to 54. Carlson, 496,000 viewers. CNN, 224. MSNBC, 177. I got to say, this to me is actually really crazy because to be honest, to be fair, I understand that this is just TV, but for my daily show and IRL, we get more in the key demo than that. But again, Carlson also gets substantial views on YouTube as well, so I'm not getting 500,000 on TV. That's good for him. And it's the same thing is true for AC360 and Hayes. I can certainly mock their low viewership. Typically, one video I do will get that many views in the key demo. But they are on TV and on YouTube, so they get a lot of views on YouTube. CNN gets like 200 million. Fox gets a little, I think, around that much. But anyway, I digress. When it comes to TV, Carlson gets more than CNN and MSNBC combined in the key demo. When you add in all demographics, which you're getting that 18 to 24, plus you're getting the older crowd. It's mostly older crowd. Carlson's sitting at around 3 million. AC360 is at 1 million. Hayes is at 1.6. Maddow's at 2.8 in the next hour. That's great for Rachel Maddow, actually. That's really, really good. And Carlson is a little bit down from the average right now. So MSNBC is doing really, really well. Why? Well, they've decided to go hard left culture war. They produce a bunch of garbage. Tucker Carlson has always been right-wing culture war, and I think he does a pretty good job. Clearly, you see where my bias lies, but we know that CNN and MSNBC are liars. The funny thing is they say Tucker Carlson is the liar. I guess that's the problem of the culture war and people not wanting to believe anyone from the other side. But I go through all of the sources that I have when I do this. They're always NewsGuard certified. I take fact checking very seriously when I do my analysis videos like this, my opinion and analysis commentary. I'm looking at NewsGuard certified fact check sources. I look into it, and I think that's a lot better than a lot of these organizations do that actively lie. But if you look at AC360, hey, good for them. They broke 1 million. 1.006. So congratulations. But yes, CNN's ratings are absolutely in the gutter. Now, CNN's ratings will improve in the next year with the midterms coming up, and I think they'll improve decently. But I don't know if that matters all that much because CNN is just not worth it. Check this out. AT&T pays $18.8 million for CNN Center ground and air rights ahead of possible sale of Complex. That is not them paying $18.8 million to CNN. They are buying the air and ground rights of the complex because they are possibly going to sell the building. Oh, there you go. So why are they so desperate and so panicked to produce this garbage segment? Well, look, let's be real. Brian Stelter doesn't deserve to have a TV show. He really, really doesn't. He's bad at what he does. He doesn't bring on any opposition commentary. He doesn't have any meaningful debate. He doesn't do any fact-checking or research. It's all garbled nonsense, talking points, regurgitated and vomited on the floor. But more importantly, we don't need a show about the media right now. It doesn't make sense. All he does is talk about Tucker Carlson. He basically says, don't watch Fox News because we watched it for you and then we'll tell you what we don't like about it. Is that it? Look, I rag on CNN every so often, but I rag on tons of media. That's the problem with being the empire, with being the legions for Darth Vader. I would never call Brian Stelter Darth Vader. He doesn't deserve that. Darth Vader actually was powerful. But this is what happens when you are a dying news outlet for the empire and the only real opposition is one cable channel. I can look at all of these channels, ABC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, Washington Post, and I can point out how this massive network is producing garbage and lying. And then you got Fox News. Yeah, they're not perfect. Yeah, they have. I'm not a big fan of Hannity or Laura Ingraham. I think Tucker's all right. I think their news reporting, Brett Baer, is fantastic. That's about it. But they're one channel. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh no, one guy with one show. No, I'm not. Brian Stelter represents the establishment machine and their desperation to go after anyone who dare oppose the establishment. Brian Stelter is not doing videos about how Rachel Maddow produced lies for years. Why? Because he produced the same exact lies. So when I criticize CNN, and I do often, it is mostly about the entirety of the establishment and the failures of the anti-Trump media. By all means, you're allowed to criticize Tucker Carlson. By all means, Brian Stelter's allowed to produce a segment saying Tucker bad. That's fine. I produce a segment saying Brian Stelter bad. Sure. And Tucker Carlson is substantially larger than Brian Stelter. The issue is CNN as a massive conglomerate and the lies they've produced over years. The Pulitzer Prizes won by the New York Times and whatever garbage CNN got for their fake news on Russiagate. They have pushed the lies over and over again. They tell you not to think. Don't think. Just watch and we'll do all the work for you. You can't read the WikiLeaks emails, only we can. Don't watch Fox News, we'll watch it for you. Congratulations, you guys are in a downward spiral. They're going to sell your building off, you're going to get laid off, and you know what? Good riddance. Because new channels are on the rise. We got timcast.com popping up. We're expanding. Our ratings are going up, up, up. We have infinite room for growth. So as CNN is on the decline, our network grows. Good. We'll see how things play out, but I'm confident because I'm watching exponential growth while CNN, exponential decline. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.